Welcome back to Beyond Stereo, the Dolby Atmos podcast. I'm Dan Bucknell, and here we talk about the world of immersive technologies aimed at creating more meaningful and emotional experiences for music, film, and just about everything else. Today's guest is Michael O'Halloran, a filmmaker and director of the movie Space-Time. Join us now as we dive deep into making a sci-fi epic with a big vision on a small budget. Thank you so much for jumping on, man. This has been a long time coming.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, I think we've been talking. I was actually looking at it before. 2017 is when I first reached out to you, and I'd heard of you before that, following Space-Time. And so that's 8 years, man. We've been waiting for this for 8 years.
Yeah, and it feels even longer on my end. That feels about right. It's good to finally get to chat, having sent each other messages back and forth over that time as we've been working on our projects. So yeah,
Absolutely.
Really glad to be here now.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. And look, I think this whole thing, obviously Space-Time is going to come up a lot. Your brand new film that has been a long time in the making. It's how I first heard of you as well, like I said. But just the whole, everything that you've been working on and everything that I've seen on Facebook circles and things like that as well. There's so much I want to dive into, man. So maybe we should start just at that beginning point. A lot of the stuff that I think I was watching a lot of your content around the making of Space-Time, and you documented everything, and it was so inspiring. I wanted to just straight up at the start here talk a little bit about that and how that decision got made to even do that. Where did it all begin?
Well, the real origin of documenting everything and putting it online is just I had grown up watching all the diaries, the video diaries that Peter Jackson had done.
Okay.
And I had just learnt so much about filmmaking from the videos he did for King Kong and the Hobbit trilogy and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Those looks behind the scenes, even though they were these enormous, expensive productions, they made it all seem so possible. It really did still look like a director just working with actors and cameras and sound and just playing. So I had always been so inspired by what I had seen in those behind the scenes journals that I had always just felt like, oh, that's such a fun thing to get to do. And then doing it on an indie level, doing doing an indie version of what I had been so fired up by. The other reason that we did it, because I've kind of done it on all my short films as well in one form or another, and I really found the benefit of having something you could always point to that sort of gave people an idea of where you were on the journey. We made a short film called The Dossier Case, which was also written with Adam and a lot of the same faces, same composer, Adrian, a lot of people that I've been working with my whole life. Really.
Yeah.
And that was a film that we made over 2 years, and it was all, at the time I was working in a video store and a bakery and a gelati store all at once.
Wow.
I was just working all 3 shifts to just try and raise the money to make this short film. And we spread the production of the film over these 2 years and divided the shooting up into these 4 blocks that I would go and work like crazy, save, make a block, go back to work like crazy, save, do the next block. And we were putting little videos up online and all that. And we started as this little band of maybe 10, very small scale. And by the end had attracted all these people who joined us in helping us make the film. We didn't have anything in the way of actual grip or gaff equipment or personnel when we started the shoot, but by the end we had jibs and techno cranes and all these things. Yeah, and it was just because people were responding to us, and it wasn't done in a calculated way. It was just very clear that, oh, these guys are trying to do something for the love of it. And I found that those little diaries sort of helped communicate our love of what we were doing, and people really got excited just at the ambition of what we were trying. And so that kind of carried us into Space-Time. And so by the time we were starting pre-production, I really was like, we're absolutely going to do this. I was very excited to do it, and it also worked for a long time as a little marker for us in where we were in the process. We're going to do a video on ADR because we're up to the ADR. It was a good way for us to keep track of where we were. So yeah, that was Absolutely. Really the inspiration and the thinking.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean that whole process. I mean, it can be such a long, lengthy process, of course, as any filmmaker or artist in any form knows. There's so many moving parts to that. Showcasing all of that stuff. It really is inspiring. I suppose you said you were inspired by the Peter Jackson stuff. For me, honestly, I actually just watched Fellowship again last night, so that's just funny that happened. However, yeah, like the Star Wars stuff was a big one on my radar. For example, just watching all the behind the scenes of all the George Lucas movies, pretty much everything there. And I can sort of attribute that feeling of look how these guys started and where it sort of became, and I can see that the way you've done that is such an inspiring thing, just in itself, and obviously you've done it from being inspired in a very similar way, which is super, super cool. I've been following that, like I said, for 8 years now. Oh, it's probably longer. Because I think I didn't reach out to you immediately. It was I was watching the early stuff. You hadn't shot anything yet, I think, at the time I was watching.
Okay, yeah.
Do you?
Well, then that would have been
videos?
2015.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, or maybe you had started, but you hadn't. Yeah, I hadn't seen any footage, or there was no on-set footage or anything like that yet. You were talking about other things. Did you put out videos for that?
We did.
Remembering correctly?
Yeah. Yep, that's right. Yeah, no, we started with like us doing the visual effects testing and then the casting, and really we really was like from the start. We did one on storyboarding, one on the writing, like finalizing the script. We really did put up every step of the film in those videos. Yeah.
That's so cool. And I mean, like, I know that a lot of that stuff is sort of not available anymore, and that's cool. However, I think that is such a huge part of that process. I would love to see that again. And I wonder, is anything being done with that? We've spoken a little bit about it, but yeah, what's going to sort of become of all of that behind the scenes footage?
Well, I absolutely want to use it as well. And we did take them down, and it was mostly to make sure the message of the movie, like that it's a movie coming out, like that we were the little film that could, and what we still are in some ways. There was a move just in the marketing direction and sales direction for the film as it became a movie that was coming out, that a lot of the stuff that was a little out of date, and we really had a philosophy of showing sort of warts and all, but we really wanted anything that was about promoting the movie from this point to be more about the story and the characters and the world and the film itself, and less focused on that. So we did take those down for now. But the plan is, it's funny that you mentioned the Star Wars making ofs, because that's the other huge inspiration, that documentary for episode 1, the beginning, and Empire of Dreams. Those two have been such a huge influence. So we're really taking what had started as those sort of vlogs, and we're going to rework them into a feature documentary, because we documented every step of this 10-year journey bringing space-time to life. We really have as I said, warts and all inside look at like what it can take. Not that every film takes 10 years, not that every film needs this much, but just this was our way. And I think every indie, there is some incredible mountain that has to be overcome. I mean, every film, truthfully, but independent film especially.
Yeah.
And for us, it was this massive workload because of what we were aiming for in terms of particularly production scale and post-production. So yeah, we'll be making a feature-length documentary that will it may well be a better movie than Space Time. I think that it will tell the story of just what we did and like how much you do have to sacrifice to keep a train like this on the tracks for such a long time. And yeah, we really we had a behind the scenes team covering just every part of it. And yeah, I think it's a very cool story. And I know, again, it's a story about me, so I feel a bit full of myself and like, I think it's a very cool story how this movie
I can say it is. It's definitely a very cool story.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of, like, we made so many mistakes And this also is an opportunity to sort of like unpack them and talk about them, and hopefully help other people who might watch the documentary as filmmakers setting out on their first feature, and like, oh, this is what can go wrong. These are the
Yes.
these are the
There's,
things to try and avoid. Go and make all
absolutely.
new mistakes.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Well, I think that's really cool as well. Trying to help people with their projects as well. And you mentioned that the sort of story of you guys just setting out to do something and showcasing obviously all of that at the same time. Um, but that actually overlaps without any spoilers. That overlaps very strongly in the story of Space Time as well, which is really quite an important thing. I think that works so well. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it absolutely is like a huge deal, probably towards how much or how many people have now jumped on board and gone, we totally believe in this. That's huge. Can you talk about that a little
Yeah.
bit?
Yeah, it's funny that it wasn't deliberate. It definitely wasn't that we sat down and said, let's make a big sci-fi that's actually about independent filmmaking. I think that inevitably you do write what you know. And Adam Harmer, my co-writer, he and I were inevitably putting parts of ourselves in the characters. And it really was over the course of the writing of the script, we're like, oh, this is kind of about indie film, ha ha ha. And then as we really were making it, it's like, oh, we've made this is absolutely about indie film. And we were like realizing at various points in the production, we're now living that scene. Oh, we're up to that bit. To give a bit of context, the film is about these scientists who start out with financing and resources, and they're trying to build this project, and then of course go rogue. They go independent and they lose their financing, and it's then about them borrowing and stealing to try and rebuild the engine that they're working on, which is this space-time device. And it is about the lengths that these scientists will go to see their machine rebuilt, which is very comparable to the lengths we would go to see our movie finished.
100%.
It's a real truth. I think whenever you hear from other filmmakers like getting their first movie made, they'd have thrown themselves off a bridge to see it over the line, and that's exactly how we felt. So yes, the two stories, really, the real world story and the movie story, have an incredible parallel. And yeah, as I'm thinking about the documentary as well, it's like, oh, they're going to be a very nice companion piece just because thematically they're
Yeah,
so similar.
absolutely. You could play them side by side even. It's like sort of the same things happening. That's an
Mm.
incredible, I guess, happy accident. But
Mm.
honestly, I think that just goes so far to illustrate the lengths you went to, and how cool that is in the story that it talks about that, and that that can be relevant that way. I think that's probably helping to even in the marketing side of things, that's that story that you're sort of putting out, even in your trailers. I've seen that idea of people talking about that. There's people in your cast or yourself or whoever talking about this idea where the filmmakers are living the same thing as the characters in the story, and that is really, really cool and inspiring just in itself. So I thought that was a really cool thing to talk about. I guess another thing I wanted to bring up, during all of this process, like you said, 10 years, that's a huge, huge undertaking for anybody. At the start, did you sort of ever foresee that it might be that long or that hard, or what were some of the things that you were like blown away by or expected?
Look, no, I definitely did not think it would take 10 years. But I did know that if it did take 10 years, I'd be down for it. Like I knew that would, if it's throwing myself off a bridge, if it's taking 10 years, like I knew whatever it took to get that first film made, I was going to do it. And so the hope was that it would be, in the 3 or 4 year range, maybe, in that I knew that our post production would be a little bit longer and would be
Yeah.
larger and more demanding than the average. I knew that we were setting out with an enormous amount of visual effects work and an enormous amount of post sound work, because of what we were aspiring to. And so I think the real sense that we were in trouble in terms of time didn't really come until we were a couple of years into post-production, because in pre, we did a lot of prep and visual effects testing. As I said, our first vlog was about the VFX testing. We did a lot of work to prep for things, and felt we had a very good idea of how most of the things would work. And it really was a mixture between knowing how to do the things, but there just being this enormous volume.
Yeah.
And then there were all the effects that you didn't anticipate or that were made harder because of something that went wrong on the day. And so, okay, we'll shoot it like this and cover it in that way, and that will make it easier to execute in post. Oh no, we can't execute it that way. We've had to make a change, and now it is going to be difficult, which is not to say that it was being fixed in post, but just the approach that we had hoped for or planned for wasn't going to work, and we'd have to be a bit more creative.
Right.
So yeah, the blowout, it's not necessarily that we said it will take this long and then we're just terribly wrong. It was a gradual process of just seeing where we actually were. I've described before, our production was a lot like swimming into the ocean, knowing that there is definitely land on the other side, but just not being sure how far away it is. And you swim out into the middle of the ocean and you can't see land, and you look behind you and you can't see the land you left. And it's just, you just have to keep swimming, confident that eventually land will come into view and you'll make it to the shore.
Yeah, you're
and
out
so
that far.
yeah, it was really that. Yeah, it was the final push of post. It definitely felt like climbing onto sand and clawing your way onto the dry land.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I can imagine that. Yeah. So when you're in a project like this, obviously, so many people have put so much time and love and energy and money into a project to make this possible. I suppose if you get to the midpoint like that where you can't see either side, it's really like, well, we're not going to let this be a waste, because this is huge. You have to keep going, and I think that's a really cool lesson to anyone who's doing anything like that, big or small, I guess.
exactly. And I think that's something that motivated us enormously, was just knowing that like the only thing worse than the film being terrible would be for it to not be finished. And I felt like truthfully, like there was never ever a serious conversation ever once between myself and the other producers of like, should we finish this thing? It was just always, no, we are going and doing whatever it takes. And when you sort of sum it up as like, oh god, this like, and I say 10 years, it actually hasn't been 10 yet. We haven't quite hit the 10-year anniversary, but
Okay.
it's close enough. But when you say it like that, it's like, God, how on earth did you do it? Like in terms of just staying with it and staying enthusiastic. That period was filled with like just peppered with so many wonderful victories and moments of satisfaction and creative joy and friendship. The production team on Spacetime are my best friends, and it's just mind-blowing to me that they haven't dropped me off the side of a ship yet. I can't believe that we're all still as close as we are and keen to work together again after having done this. It was a
incredible.
joyous experience. It really was, and it despite being so hard and difficult and everyone making so many sacrifices, it was so much fun as well.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, just even in your face how you say that. I've seen, like, it's sort of not a unheard of thing that, when a cast and crew come together for that duration of the show, or when whatever they're doing, it does become like a family, and you sort of see each other day in, day out. And these relationships grow, and that helps create something beautiful together, especially when that's real. That's the real part of it. I think that translates a lot as well. If you like what you're doing and you're with people that are all in on the same, the same task, and like spending time together and all that matters and absolutely makes the film better. So I think that's really beautiful, that you've had that experience as well with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And I mean, I'm also unbelievably lucky. Like, I feel like anything I've said so far about things going well or achievement, like that is unbelievable luck on my part. I
And
am
hard
the
work,
benefactor of, hard work, absolutely. And I think anyone who sets out to make films not expecting a lot of hard work is in for a horrible shock.
Absolutely.
But I do work with people. I'm really lucky to work with people that are great to work with, that are ridiculously talented, and are keen to make films for the same reason. I think that's the most important thing in a filmmaker's career, is to have a team that have the same ambition and same goals, and are shooting for the same end result that you are. And I think if you can get that right, if you can find your people, you are halfway there.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. I think just some of those people I'd love to dive into specifically. So the visual effects, as you said before, it was quite a. It's truly a sci-fi epic to me. I can just say, and I don't say this lightly. I don't know if I've said it to you yet, but it to date it is absolutely without a doubt the best independent film I have ever seen. That is huge.
That can't possibly be true. That's astoundingly kind.
I really do mean that, and that it's every level of effort, and it's an overwhelmingly positive success story to me when I look at Space Time and everything that you guys did together. How you're talking about it now, that is a really cool thing. You should be absolutely so proud of that. So,
oh man, well, thank you.
For real.
Very kind. Yeah, man, I really appreciate that. And again, I'm just so glad that you enjoyed it, but yeah, glad that we got to make it in this way. It's it's been difficult, and we'll talk more, I'm sure, about the challenges of
Absolutely.
the production. But yeah, I'm so pleased to hear that, and yeah, I stand on the shoulders of the most incredible team that. Again, no one quit. Everyone, like
That's it.
We're going to talk about, like they were just showing up day in, day out to bring it to life and achieve what you've described there. So
Absolutely.
and
it is a team effort,
really
and
nice.
so I think all of you deserve that. That's that just from me, a fellow film lover and someone who
Yeah.
works in the industry. I think just to I didn't want to leave that out today because I think it's really
I
important.
appreciate that. Thank you. That's really kind.
Of
Thank
course. So some of the crew and some of the cast, and let's dive deep into some of those things. And everybody has done a remarkable job to bring this to life. But some things that really, really stood out to me were the visual effects, definitely, the score, and your lead cast members. Really, really held this together. It was amazing. It was really, really good, and it felt like a Hollywood production on a budget, which is the title of this episode for that reason. It truly is a sci-fi epic, and I love that. Can you talk about how some of these people got on board, maybe?
Well, let's start with cast, and we can work our way through cast to visual effects, and then to score. I feel like that's
Love that.
Nice production
that
order.
Yep, I agree. And we'll get to the mix later.
Yes. The cast were a mix of people I'd worked with before. So there's Ashley Lowback. We've done a couple of productions together. There was first a concept trailer for a feature film that basically became Space Time. It was sort of a lot of the same pieces rearranged in terms of crew and cast. And so we've been working together, and I had, since the first time I met her, which was on a short film set, which I was the first AD for, and she was the lead. We just got on very well, but I really liked her mix of humor on screen, her ability to really knock the dramatic stuff out of the park as well, and just had that very that's something that was just very watchable. I don't think you see that as often. It's quite a rare, special thing. And I just remember at that point being like, I really do want to work with her again in something. And I'd love to see her in a fun kind of adventure film, something in the realm of space time.
Yeah.
And so we had been working together for a while. So when we wrote Space Time, the role was written completely for her. We had no idea what we would have done if she'd said no. We would have made a different movie. And so she was quite keen. She definitely had her reservations just about carrying such a big production. She was all in on the ambition, but I think as is entirely reasonable, was like, oh, wow, it is all me. Like, I'm in every scene. And there's multiple versions of myself at one point in the film. It's a lot. But she was up for the challenge and just killed it.
She certainly did.
Yeah. Oh man, just you can't, like, I should say, of Ash's performance, there are things like some roles are written and they get all the big showy stuff. And like the character of Holt is played by Hugh, he gets a lot of big speeches in the film. He gets moments to really like shine and show off. And then there are the actors that have to make every bit of the machinery work and do it in a way that's invisible. And Ash's power in space time is that she just makes you believe, whether it's the opening scenes where she's falling in love with Harris, whether it's the later scenes where they're jumping through time and all these different things are happening. There's a real talent in being able to sell these extremely different tones and extremely different story beats and quite complicated narrative beats. And she weaves them together in a way that you just don't even notice her doing it. You just take it and she's just taking you on the journey. And that is
believable.
just, and that's essential. Like as a director, there are so many times I'm just like, oh, like I'm just so lucky Ash knew how to make this work. I'm just so lucky she was able to get us through and whatever is failing from a directorial point of view, I think the audience will go on the journey because of what she's doing.
Totally.
So that's Ash. There was Hugh, who we'd also worked with before. He was also on cast for this concept trailer that it got retooled to become essentially space time. He was an unbelievable ally. Because we had 5 days of rehearsal before we shot the film, and we sort of went into that rehearsal period saying, let's look for opportunity now. Let's use this time, because when we get on set, we're going to be aiming to hit 10 to 14 pages a day. It's going to be long days. It just isn't going to be time. What we were trying to do in that shoot was we were just biting off so much more than you can chew, really. So we all made a pact that really was like, look, we can interrogate and argue and come up with ideas in this room. On set, there's going to come a time where we just have to go with it. And Hugh was such a big proponent of that idea and so eager to support as much as an actor has questions and ideas, he was always so quick to say, what do you need? How can we bring it to life in the best way for the story, for you, for the ambition of the production. And so it was just a dream to work with. Also someone who speaks in all the references I speak in. So lots of Jaws references, lots of Spielberg references on set, lots of Alien references. It was awesome. One very nice night where it was after shooting and we finished like mid-evening and we had like some of the warehouse location lights on. And he went for a little, so I'm walking by himself and I just came over and joined him and he said, oh, I'm having a Nostromo moment. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, it's like walking around my Nostromo, like being on the set of Alien. It was pretty cool. And then of course there was Patch rounding out sort of that 3. So Pacharo, he's an actor I had not worked with before. I'd seen him in a play called Prize Fighter and was just blown away. Hugh had recommended that I speak to him and see this play. And it was just so immediately clear that this was a guy that needed to be on screen, and he'd done plenty of movies, and has a real charisma. And I've said before, like that first day that we shot with him and he first appears on screen, like there is a Harrison Ford like it factor that he has, where it's just like, oh, he's just a cool guy that you want to watch. Like he just has that like interesting delivery, interesting way in and out. And so he was just a blast to work with. And between those 3, we just had such interestingly different actors that were all brought a very different component to the chemistry that sort of makes up the energy of your film.
Absolutely. Yeah. And each of them have multiple like sort of story arcs as well that do evolve as well. So that's a testament to them to not only carry the story as it propels forward, but it's an evolving, moving target always as well that you have to sort of make sense of, and it still has to be believable, So that's I think all 3 nailed it.
I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, I mean, I feel awesome. That I definitely feel like their work in the film makes it work. And again, we're going to talk about music and effects and all the
All
things
of
it
that.
does to bring it all together. But
Yeah,
yeah, it all falls apart if those three performances aren't working.
completely agree with that. Yeah. Can I ask that first day you were talking about with Patch? So what were you shooting that day?
So the very first day of filming it was three main scenes. So the first was outside the Thai restaurant, which is when Renault, as played by Haroon Jaffrey Hall, approaches Liv to come back and work on the second engine. We did that. Yep. Then we did everything inside the restaurant, which is the scene between Patch and Ash as they're talking about everything that's happened on with the legal situation and all the fallout. And then we did an action scene after that. We went and did a scene that's been cut down and reworked a bit in the final film. But everything in the basement with the ceiling collapsing and them all on the ground, that was all filmed in the car park behind the restaurant underneath the cinema where I worked.
Really?
And so, yeah, we had crammed these three enormous scenes into one night of filming, our first night of filming, but it was the only way to do it. So for me, that moment with Patch, it was just him coming onto set and what is two people at a dinner table talking about ordering food and talking about their relationship and talking about their place in life, and him just imbuing it with this interesting, cool factor, coupled with Ash making choices about just making choices about like what Liv, how Liv responds to being challenged by a partner. And as I said, we had that rehearsal period, but I do think when the camera's rolling, the final decisions are made. And
Absolutely.
They were both just working so well together in that scene. And yeah, it was a really hard day, or night rather. It was all night.
Sounds
shooting.
like it.
Yeah, but it was good. It was really ultimately we got such great stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. So that other scene, so that the action scene there, that's quite a big scene. Like you show it multiple times in different ways, and that's a pretty important thing. So how long did that take that night? And you said it was reworked. Are you comfortable talking a little bit about how and maybe what it originally was?
Yeah, so to give a bit of context to that scene with the ceiling collapse, it's filmed across different locations and different days as well. So you've got the extra challenge of people coming in going through one door, and it's the night shoot on that first night, and they come out the door and it's 6 days later and it's a day shoot in a different location, and then having to sell that. Yeah, which we did a lot of on Spacetime. There's a huge amount of us saying, oh, we know this, we can get access to this stairwell or this corridor in this place, and we'll connect it to that and make it all look like it's one big facility.
Very well done too.
Good.
I must say, totally believable.
Good. No. Look, you never know. Because I still see that's the car park under the cinema I worked at, and that's
of course
the hallways of QUT or whatever, wherever it was. So there's that, and then so you asked about the reworking. So that's really a product of. There were a few big changes from the script to the final film. The edit did, over the many years we were working on it, we did make a lot of changes, and that scene in particular got dropped quite early on, or condensed and made clearer very early on. Okay. There was an entirely different finished version of the movie, which we can talk about later, but this scene did get simplified quite early. We got it. We early in the edit, it was okay, let's try and really make this a little easier to follow. I think Adam and I were very ambitious in terms of some of the science fiction ideas that we just wanted to try, and it really was two guys that have been thinking about making their movie for too long and had too many ideas and just threw everything at it. And so there was an element of us okay, let's try and make it a bit clearer in terms of how the time distortions work. Originally we had this idea of these bubble concepts that were they sort of floated around and changed time periods and whatnot. And it was definitely going to be way too difficult for visual effects, if we wanted to finish it this century. But also it was we are introducing so many different ideas. Let's try and make it a bit more of a straight line. And so, that sequence just became about the ceiling collapsing and reforming, which was the key part of the scene anyway, but we just took some of the extra stuff out. So that's really what happened with that one, which I think works quite well. And then originally it was supposed to only be seen once in the film, and then by the end, and again, happy to talk more about how we got to this conclusion, but eventually we came up with this non-linear structure for the movie that is not how the movie was written. And then it was like, oh, we could build everything off this moment that kind of explains the moment of discovery. Like, it is the moment that they figure out, or that Holt figures out what he's dealing with, and it's what launches the mission to go and rebuild it and investigate further what's been discovered during the accident.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd like to show these guys a snippet from the film.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we'll play that now. Come back and chat a little bit about the trailer.
You see it all just like I do. Things are bad and getting worse. What's the solution? What's our best shot at really changing things, at finding something new?
Do you actually know what happened to them? Because if you don't, this whole thing is being shut down now.
Our engine simply holds space. When we're done, they stretch it out again.
I still say it's dangerous. Having it traveling through space the old-fashioned way.
3 years after the Ryko Island disaster.
People died, lived, your co-workers lived!
You saw what it did on Ryko. Now I'm gonna finish this engine.
It's very different to last time.
Heading out with the boys. It has to be.
You're not building bombs, are you? Or working for terrorists?
We need to finish what we started.
Switching this on again without any idea what will happen, you're insane!
Get yourselves out now! Go!
Science is always 2 steps further forward than it should be. We never see the dangers of progress coming. Except now.
All right, so that was the Space-Time trailer. We're here again with Michael O'Halloran talking about space-time. Mate, how did the trailer get off the ground? I mean, were you sort of close to finishing the movie by the time that launched, or when did that sort of come about? I forget when it came out.
Yeah, you've just made me have to think about exactly when we put it together. I know we had it in one form or another for a while. So we put out one teaser trailer very early on, and it really had, like, it was just a bit of sizzle. It wasn't really anything plot or character-wise, and that was... Right. That got us a certain distance as far as the film being alive and being able to show people without actually having the finished movie. But yeah, this trailer was it really was as we were gearing up for taking the film to market. It was off the back of us having finished the final version of the movie, having a better sense of how best to take it out into the world in terms of attracting a sales agent and distributor, and talking to other producers, getting advice, getting sort of our own feelings and taste in trailers and movie marketing as well, and trying to bring them together to make something that gave you a sense of the film without hopefully giving away too much.
Yeah. Okay. And the trailer, I mean, itself, as you just saw, talks about a couple of the themes that are throughout, but it really doesn't give anything away too much. In fact, I think a lot of people probably didn't even realize that the space-time engine is even that. It does feel like a portal. I know you've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Can we go into that just a tiny bit? Honestly, it's probably just a really, really cool way to just say, hey, we're not going to say what this is right now. It's just whatever you think it is. And that's kind of enticing. Watch the movie. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah. Well, I think the machine itself, we always liked the idea, because Adam and I in particular were such big fans of time travel movies. We're big fans of science fiction movies, Stargate, any like different types of science fiction movies that use our device to do a thing. Yeah. And we really wanted it to be we thought a way that could be quite interesting and different would be to have, instead of you go into the device, so you're not entering a Stargate and transporting through space or getting in a DeLorean and traveling through time, that it would be that the device emits something that comes out and changes the time period or the space period, depending on
right, like a warp drive in Star Trek. That's sort of what
exactly.
it is?
That's right. Yeah, precisely. Okay. So it's a generated thing, but the idea being, let's do it in buildings. Let's do it like on the ground. So taking a bit of the warp drive from Star Trek, a bit of the way that the hyperspace works in Dune with the folding and bringing 2 points together, which is that device is used in a lot of different science fiction.
Yeah, and actually explains that, I think, in the movie, doesn't she?
Yeah,
there's a time where she actually explains that perfectly with Patch's character as well.
Yeah,
and I want to come back to that scene too, because that was an epic scene.
Cool.
Just as well. Yeah. But anyway, continue.
Yeah. So a lot of the ideas were like, okay, let's imagine a machine that's like the Large Hadron Collider. Like it's a huge, like you don't take your space-time device, pop it in your backpack and go on an adventure. It really is an entire facility powering this device that will eventually be on a spaceship. Like the idea is that you're kind of looking at the engine on the back of a Star Destroyer. You know, it's right. The thing that would allow it to travel across space instantaneously. And so, we had this concept that it would be more a generator of energy than a thing you enter. And so then coming up with the design, we just looked at the back of spaceships like I said, the Star Destroyer engine was a major one. And while it definitely we have had people talk about it as like, oh, it's a jump gate, and then they see the movie like, oh, it's not a jump gate. Okay. I think that is actually part of the fun, and it's funny when you have elements in a movie that are kind of meta, but they parallel the feelings of the characters. I don't mind that people are confused by it. The first 10 minutes of the movie are a number of different characters being confused by what they're seeing just in terms of the machine and having it explained. And our hero characters being like, trust us, this is actually quite simple. You're just bringing what you already know into it. And that kind of parallels that assumption. So honestly, I quite
that's where I was going with that, because I think that's the whole fun part about it, is that you actually don't need to explain that people not knowing what it exactly is part of the fun. And and the trailer kind of perfectly does that. And then they explained it a little bit still in the trailer, particularly with the folding space thing, and but it's not like explicit about that, so it's just a fun thing that I noticed, and I know you've talked about it before. But anyway, there's a few other things I want to get to here. We were talking about the special effects, the visual effects, all that stuff. I know that you were using a lot of green screen stuff on
green
set.
Screen in particular,
Okay. Now, how much of the film was actually green screen and replaced?
Well, in terms of complete scene replacement, like just actors and everything else around them is digital, there's only one truly full scene that has that, and it's quite a short one. In most cases, we were on location, and the green screen would just be where the engine is. So in the warehouse environment, whenever you see the second engine, there was a green screen that was the size and exact scale of the engine. And so it'd always just be used to place the engine into the scene, and everything else around them was real. What we were doing, though, instead, where it wasn't necessarily green screen or blue screen, it was just us going in and enhancing the location. So changing what's outside a window, changing the color of walls, things like that. So we talked about the locations connecting, and we're like, all right, we can't build this huge island facility. We're going to have to find a foyer here, the offices here, everything that's underground here, and we'll make them all match. A big part of making them all match and feel like the same building was us going in and changing the walls and the types of little details in the architecture and things, so that it all did feel unified. So it's actually not that much in the way of green screen or blue screen.
More set extensions.
It's much more, set extensions, enhancements. Anytime you see a character interact with a monitor, that's just a piece of plastic, and it's always content being added on and mapped and tracked with their fingers so that they're interacting with it.
That's great.
It's pretty fun. Like it's an interesting puzzle that we had to solve, where we'd say to the actors, like, you're doing this, you're powering up the engine, or you're mapping in an instruction or something, and so they just tap and type and invent the motion themselves. And then the fun puzzle was Justin and I sitting and going, okay, what if when she swipes like that, that's her loading the whatever the device, when he turns his hand like that, that'll be him turning it like it's a knob, and increasing the power,
That's awesome.
things like that. So
It sounds like a lot of
there were
fun.
a lot of that. Yeah, it was great. That's what I mean when I say that, like, even though the post was so tough and there were all these challenges, we just constantly had these little rewarding creative moments. So
Yeah.
that was definitely one of them. So visual effects, and that's also how the volume creeps up, because you say, okay, cool, whenever you see the engine, that's a digital effect. Like, that's always 100% digital, whether it's the white one at the start or whether it's the rusty one in the second half. And so the aim was to not have it needlessly in the background of too many moving shots. What ended up happening, because one of the very cool things about the film, we didn't use film lights. We had very little in the way of actual film lighting. It was mostly natural or augmented practical light.
Okay.
We talked about the restaurant scene that we shot on. Like, we used the lights that were there, and then we put China balls over their lights so that we would have this lovely diffused glowy light. But like, that's the lights that you'd find if you went to the restaurant, like, just enhanced. And so in the warehouse, the lights that you see, like in a night scene, they were just like work lamps that the characters were using, and we would do, point them and craft the lighting as best we could with them. But more often than not, it was using the environment. So in the case of the warehouse, there were these big diffused panels, like skylights, and then panels on the side. And when we found the location, Daniel Maddock is the cinematographer. He took me around and said, okay, if you shoot here at this time of day, looking this way, it's going to look beautiful. If you can give me a scene that's like this time of like evening, the sun will be there, it'll be bouncing through the roof there, And so we would pick where in the warehouse we'd shoot depending on those ideas. I was like, okay, great, I'll put this scene here at that time, and so on and so forth. If that's what filmmaking really is, it's puzzle solving, problem solving.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that did lead to also instances where it's like, well, we have to shoot back this way, and oh no, we're going to see the engine more. And it just, like, as the film went on, scenes where I didn't see the engine being featured a lot, and so therefore that green screen, that number just increased, because we have to look back this way for it to look great. Otherwise, it just looks flat if we're looking back the other way. Which again, it was not. But that's just a budget limitation that we had.
Of course.
And again, it worked out really well. But yeah, it did. That's where some of that overage came from in terms of the number of shots that needed a fully digital prop in the background.
I can see how it like, especially with all, the monitors as just one small thing you mentioned before. The big one obviously is the engine, and that's a whole lot of work that needs to be done to make that look right. And every shot's completely different with different lighting, etc.
Yeah.
Were you using any like tracking, like to record lighting for 3D moves and things like that?
Yeah, so some things, not as much as you'd think, and some of it was just limitations of the budget and the technology at the time.
Right.
It's amazing how far we've come now in terms of accessibility to a lot of that. A lot of the tools that give you that information. But Justin would do scans of all the locations. He would get reference plates, reflection plates. We always had tracking markers on the screen, or like just basic things, often not usable or not really giving much other than, well, that's good. It's handy reference, but it's going to be a hand track, or it's going to be a frame eye by eye, just one frame at a time to figure out the movement. Because something that Justin is a massive advocate for, and it's part of the reason the effects are so realistic and effective, is that we don't shoot the effect shots differently. That if there's a Steadicam shot and it's got a little bit of that Steadicam wobble, even a fully digital shot, like when the plant stretching is happening in that room,
Yes.
is all fully digital, he would make sure we had that same sort of wobble, so it all felt like it was filmed by the same camera and team. And so he never shied away from a challenging shot. Like the number of times that we were like, look, I could find an alternate take that doesn't have all this movement. He's like, no, but that's the visual language of the movie. We got to match that. We got to make sure we're hitting that. And I think it makes the effects look more realistic, and it just makes it a full cohesive whole. And you don't feel, oh, it's an effect scene. Oh, it's a non-effect scene.
Yeah, it's like it was there really happening, and the camera just got it, and that's sort of the aim. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Keeps you in it, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, I'd love to talk a little bit more now about so further into the post-production sort of line. We've got obviously the editing and the visual effects. Obviously, is a huge undertaking there. But once you've got that, you've got your cut, and even if you're still working on the online visual effects versions, you can go into things like mixing and the score. And I know that there was a really awesome win for you guys to have the score done by the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's awesome. And they did such a superb job. I'd love to talk to you about so your composer, who got that already, and how that sort of evolved. At the screening where I saw you, he was talking about it a little bit, but I would love to give my audience here a little bit more to that, about how that all went about and what happened with the score to make it feel so epic.
Yeah. Well, I use music quite liberally. It is a completely fair charge that I use too much music in my filmmaking. I love film music. I'm a gigantic film score nerd.
Me too.
I think that the movies of the sort of 70s and 80s had to use music in a very different way to movies now. I've long held a theory that visually flight was a lot harder to do, like to really sell the sensation of flying before visual effects gave us the tools to do that. And so it was really up to the music to make you soar. It was John Williams' Superman theme that really made you feel like you were flying, because as unbelievable as the effects work in Superman the movie is, it is still Christopher Reeve just sort of, dangling in front of us, or like composited in a very like left to right flight thing. Again, it's so impressive for the time. But the music was really helping carry that. And I do really love that kind of filmmaking that uses all the tools in the bag. So just straight out of the gate, my taste is very much leans towards an orchestral musical score, a large musical score. I don't think it's. I like to be led somewhat. I like the music to support what's going on. So I already had that sensibility. Going into Space-Time, we just assumed because of our budget that it wouldn't be possible to have a fully orchestral score. We were absolutely aiming to have maybe like half electronic, half orchestral, maybe use a volunteer orchestra. Adrian and I have used orchestra before for short films, and had used a couple of different approaches to get that orchestral sound, but usually always with live musicians. And so we had set out with that expectation as far as the direction of the music. But I was cutting to music, and I was using huge, Hollywood scores, a lot of John Williams, a lot of Hans Zimmer, a lot of John Ottman, various different composers. And it was really just always feeling like, I do think we're going to lose a bit of the identity of the movie, even though there are cooler science fiction soundtracks you could have for a movie like Space-Time. I really liked the old-fashioned kind of feel. So much of it had come together with a bit of the, with one foot firmly planted in that 80s, 90s filmmaking zone. And I felt like, I really like that. It'd be a shame to lose that. And then happily, through a number of very fortunate occurrences, we were able to be introduced to the Melbourne Symphony and talk to them about our ambition for the musical direction of the film, and they just got on board and loved that. And really, I think we're happy to support a film that was wanting to use music in a way that movies don't as much now.
Yes.
And so, yeah, they came on board, and when I say came on board, like just gave us the deal of the century, like just moved mountains so that they could do it for our budget.
That's awesome.
And yeah, and so Adrian suddenly had a fully orchestral score, which again, there's still some moments of very like carefully chosen where we do introduce electronic devices or bit of synth and
hybrid
things, but
thing.
they're always it's always with a for a reason. And so the recording was just an absolute dream, it's I think the music is some of the best stuff in the film. The performances work so well. The cinematography is great. The effects are great. Like this was the final thing to bring it all together. But the music, really was it. It was the glue that just brought it all together. And just such a pleasure getting to have a melodic, thematic score in an indie film. I don't think it's done. I just don't think you see this. It's pretty rare.
Agree.
So it's
It
very
is
special. I'm very lucky.
Completely love that. And I mean, the fact that, a group of, I'm not sure how many musicians exactly, but like, they're all top notch. They're great.
Yeah.
And it comes through so beautifully. And I think it definitely adds to, the epicness and feel, particularly at the beginning of the movie when you first see the complex on the island.
Yeah.
That was like, wow, I'm on Jurassic Park. It's like the full epics, right? And it was
that's exactly what we were going for.
I love it. And it was nailed completely, and it felt so
Awesome.
Inspiring. Yeah. So I think that was flawlessly executed by everybody
Amazing.
involved.
I'm
That's
so
super
pleased
cool.
to hear that. Yeah, that's exactly what we were going for. We wanted that first Jurassic Park. I've talked about before the tone. I think you think Jurassic Park in your head, right? And you go dinosaurs, scary, run, action. And you go back to that film and you watch the first 30 or 40 minutes, and it's shockingly fun. It's really delightful. It's quite silly. The flight to the island in the helicopter is people arguing over how to get seatbelts going. It's Jeff Goldblum doing that incredible laugh. It's Hammond complaining about the lawyer and everything.
Yep.
All the rest of it, and it all has this very like goofy light touch, and that was a very big thing for us. We were like, I think if we can capture some of that fun and ease, I think as we get into the heavier sci-fi stuff, it'll be a little bit more of an easy on-ramp. So yeah, it's really nice to hear that you got that sensation from our little island
completely.
and what we were doing musically. That's great. That's really great.
Oh, I'm so glad so you actually have said Jurassic Park was like your aim before me saying it now. Like, that's
right.
so
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Well,
that's amazing.
you nailed it.
That lined up. Because I mean, there's no dinosaurs in space time. Spoilers.
No.
But just that tone and that world, we were like, oh, that's that sort of 90s style and feel was very much what we wanted.
It's exciting. I think the whole thing of we're going to a new place, we're going to find out a little about thing. Even with so another moment in Jurassic Park would be when they're on the what's it called? It's like telling them about how it all works.
Oh, the Mr. DNA sequence. Yeah. They're on the
ride. You
even
have like a parallel to that where it's it's actually talking about. I love it. It's so cool and it worked really, really well. It's a bit of exposition to help the audience sort of lean into what's happening and what's going on, and we're showing people what it's all about, and it's like what happens next? Oh my goodness! And it's got everything that I think obviously you were setting out to do. It really, really worked for me. So this whole time I'm like looking at my mate going,
yeah.
I told you it was going to be good.
Oh, that's so good.
It was so cool.
Glad to hear that.
It was awesome. Let's move on to the mix a little bit because this is very exciting. Obviously, this is Beyond Stereo, the Dolby Atmos podcast.
Yes.
And I love everything immersive, like everything that we've had heaps of filmmakers and musicians and artists and all kinds of different people from every area of creative world talking about immersion as not just sort of the trademarked immersive Dolby Atmos, although that's obviously a massive topic for us, but anything immersive. And the ultimate meaning behind that is to ultimately come back to the story and make you forget you're watching a movie and just completely be immersed in the world. That's the point of all of this, right? And pretty much everyone agrees with that, and I think that's what this channel is actually really about. It's that. But while we're on Dolby Atmos, and being the buzzword that it is, can you talk about your involvement with, immersive technologies like Dolby Atmos for space-time? Because I know that was a huge one for you as well.
So yeah, we completed our mix at Folklore in Brisbane. Tom Keller and Hayden Riley were our mixers. Hayden was also sound designer. So yeah, it was great for him to have designed so many of these sounds and then step in as re-recording mixer as well. Yeah. And he'd also done the Foley too. So he really did have a very had a hand in multiple
huge part
as
of
far
it.
as the sound goes. And so yeah, the opportunity to mix in Atmos was incredible. They were just completing their Atmos stage at the time, and we were already set to mix Spacetime with Folklore. And they were like, look, we will have the Atmos stage set up, and we think Spacetime would be a perfect project to put it through its paces.
Was that their first Atmos mix? Wow, that's
So
cool.
I don't know if they had any other any other work on Atmos, but like it was essentially like we were the guinea pig
Cool.
for that particular stage and setup, at least. I know that much. So
That's awesome.
yeah, and so like just so much fun getting to play with all the toys and whatnot. But yeah, it was a great. The movie is really good for that because we have so many things like there are these time tunnels that the sort of the hyperspace tunnel effect, and we really do like go through them, and it was the perfect way to sort of show off what Atmos can do, placing sounds all around your audience, and as they're sort of moving through time and space, we hear moments from other scenes whooshing past the camera, and we get to really play and create and make it more than just your average jump to hyperspace.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a very dynamic film in terms of like lots of explosions and revving engines and these distortion blasts and all these things. So getting to map those in a way that really put you in the space was just elevated the movie to a whole other level. The ceiling collapse that we referred to earlier, which we see a couple of different times in the film, that was one of my favorite moments in Atmos, and it's so effective even when you are now listening to it, even just in 5.1 surround or 7.1, like placing all the sounds in the ceiling as it gradually breaks apart. Hayden just went to town, like bursting pipes and concrete and things. And yeah, really, like when you're sitting in this theater, it does feel like
It's
this
above
roof
you.
is
It
coming
really
down.
is. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. It's,
And so
huge.
yeah, it was incredible to get to mix with these tools. It was so great creatively. It really helped an exciting, visceral, fast-moving film like ours to really hit that sort of more Hollywood and, as you say, immersive level. But it also just made us think more about sound in a more immersive way. Like we really were like, oh, where is that sound? Like I've been, on mixing stages, mixing in 5.1 and mixing in 7.1. But this was the first time really getting to think like, oh, is it there or is it there? And, just really thinking spatially about the way the sound is presented. And I do think that a huge amount of that work, whether you listen to the movie in 5.1, whether you listen to it in 7.1, or whether you have the full Atmos cinema experience, I think you get the benefit of that thought process. And I think you get the benefit of the creative storytelling that was made, with expecting however many, 36 speakers in the ceiling. Like it's you are getting the benefit of those agonizing over those little choices, even when it is brought down to a 5.1 mix.
Absolutely, and I think that's something we've talked about quite a lot on this channel, about how that works and all of that. So a brief overview of how that all is even related here is that essentially we have object-based audio that is a scalable, sort of thing, and it's different to typical surround sound like 5.1 or 7.1, like you said, because those are specific speaker placements within a room that are always the same, and you can sort of choose where a sound is coming out of a speaker, basically. But with objects, it's not about that. It's where it is in 3D space with coordinates. And I love to talk about it as the scalable coordinates is sort of the ratios between where they are and where they're moving and how loud they are and all those things. That gets retained and scales down those ratios. So it's all intact no matter what you're listening to it on. I mean, that's the whole point. Yeah. So you don't have to have a huge immersive theater with 36 speakers. You don't have to. You can have it on anything, and those decisions do translate down. That's so important to getting that immersion back, and ultimately just being one with the story and forgetting about how many speakers there are. It doesn't matter because it's about that. And it's a really cool decision you guys made that you were able to mix it in Atmos, because it's a huge feat, to do that, and it is the front of the industry essentially. In terms of how movies are made now with sound, and super cool that you went that direction.
Yeah, well, we were very much like, I think once we'd said, okay, we're going to try for indie film that looks like a blockbuster. It really was like anything we could do to elevate that production value we were going to do. And so Atmos was a big one. Again, I love, as I've said, music. I love using sound. I do think that sound and music are the most important parts in terms of they have the most power to make or break a film and to make an audience feel, not to take away from visuals or performance or anything like that, but just you can have the most incredible performances. If the music and sound isn't working, it all falls down.
Yep.
So
completely.
It was always big for us as a goal, and much like having the Melbourne Symphony or any of the other great things we got to put into the movie in post, we were just very lucky that the right people saw what we were trying to do, admired that ambition, and offered to come on board and make it work. Because we know how lucky we are as an indie film to have these bells and whistles.
Absolutely. And look, I think, it shows, if you haven't seen the movie yet, absolutely go and see it. It is so inspiring to watch that and be, there with you for the screening and talking with you today. So I think we're nearly out of time. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity. Do you want to talk about where people can see the movie and what's next?
Yes. The film, we've just finished our limited theatrical release in Australia. And so we'll be hitting video on demand June 25th. So that will be on Google, on iTunes, Amazon, Foxtel, Fetch, Sky, and YouTube as well. And so, June 25th, all those places, and that's for Australia and New Zealand. And then we also have our DVD coming out September 3rd. So that's available for pre-order now on Umbrella's website. And so all the details we'll have at spacetimemovie.com. That's our website where we keep everything, whatever the latest news, you can find it there. And we're across all of our social media as well. So Spacetime Movie is our handle on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, the whole lot.
Yes.
So that'll be it for Australia, New Zealand, and we're figuring out international release at the moment. We've got a really great distributor and sales team that we're working with now. So as soon as we know all that information, again, just on our social media and our website, we'll have everything there.
Awesome. And you were sort of talking, we were talking before about the potential of a Blu-ray, hopefully in the future. Yeah, and maybe with that doco.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. We're the documentary, where we sort of see it as its own movie in some ways, even though it is a sister film to Spacetime. And so my hope is that we'll have an eventual Blu-ray release where we have the documentary and the feature presented together, and a few other fun bits and pieces there too. But the DVD is pretty great, like the features we've got on there, and there's I've recorded a commentary for that, which
cool.
is pretty interesting.
Can't wait.
I think it's nice. It's nice to think about the film having a life. You sort of release it and it's like, oh great, everyone's seen it, cool. And it's like, oh no, it gets to have a life in all these different forms. And yeah, the Blu-ray I think would be a really special way special thing to build to with that doco.
Absolutely. Oh man, well, thank you so much for today, guys. If you want to go watch Space Time, it is on pre-sale. Thanks so much, Michael, for jumping on today. It's been a blast.
Yeah, likewise, man. Thank you for having me. It's so great to chat, and yeah, really just talking movies.
After 8
feels
years.
like, yeah, I know. We'll talk soon, definitely.
Cool.
Thanks.
Catch you later.